Hello again, everyone. Thanks for hanging with us right before lunch. Very happy to have John Replogle with 7th Generation, formerly Burt's Bees, which became Clorox for Greenworks. And he wants to point out that this is a reused plastic he's brought out on the stage. I want to ask you all a question in the personal products you packed for your suitcase when you came here. Do you know if when you shampooed your hair with that this morning, if it had parabens in your shampoo? Because John's here to tell you that's one of the chemicals that you shouldn't have in your products.
That's right. There, unknowingly, we coat ourselves every day with countless number of chemicals, be it in our personal care products, our household cleaning products, everything we touch and breathe around our homes. Our indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air quality. So we are constantly bombarded by countless number of chemicals, and most of us don't really know what's in the products we use every day.
And some of these chemicals, PBTs, are showing up in humans in very frightful ways as far as cancer and other diseases. Can you elaborate on that?
That's right. Today there are over 80,000 chemicals used in the United States. Very few of them have ever been studied. Even fewer have been banned. And what we're seeing is a rising incidence of PBTs, these persistent bioaccumulative toxins. And the most dramatic manifestation of that is we're finding more and more of that in body tissue. So it's coincident with the rise of breast cancer, for example. But also, importantly, studies, Center of Disease Control and others have pointed out that umbilical cords have as many as 200 different chemical substances in them today. So even our youngest, our most vulnerable, are being exposed pre-birth to these accumulative chemicals.
And we really don't know. As you said, it's unregulated, and there's 88,000 chemicals. Very few have been tested. I was at a conference in Atlanta. Laura Turner-Seidel is here. She's right here in the front. She put on this conference. 500 women got out their papers and pens when we learned that lead was in our lipsticks and, well, a lot of the products in makeup as well. So we really don't know. And what's interesting, and what you were telling me in backstage, is that a lot of these chemicals have been banned, say in Europe, but those same products, when they come to the United States, can have these chemicals in them. How is that?
We have two very different regulatory platforms. In the United States, we're governed under something called TSCA, the Toxic Substance Control Act, which was passed in 1976. You can imagine that. That's almost 40 years ago. That was the law of the land, and that law has not been updated. The EPA is authorized to act under TSCA. They've reviewed very few of the chemicals that we use every day, and more come on the market. Whereas in Europe, for example, there's new legislation that's on the books, something called REACH, obviously a different standard. And what we're finding is more global companies who operate here in the United States have reformulated in Europe to a higher standard to comply with the consumer standards, and yet continue to have products in the US market that they wouldn't sell in Europe. And I find that a bit challenging. If you're truly a human health or bound company, why two standards? So we're starting to see that shift now. But our regulatory framework is broken. The EPA is toothless, and we need real reform. So we have created, 7th Generation has led a coalition of companies for safer chemicals. We're over 200 companies strong. I'd invite any company here today, if you're interested in joining us, please do see me. I'd love to put you into the network. And recently we just went to Congress. We brought, in 4 weeks, we managed to have 120,000 signatures from Americans around the country calling for comprehensive chemical reform. So we're beginning to push on that framework, regulatory framework.
So the federal government has truly been lagging in this, but you're starting to see some work for regulation. And I know that this is part of a campaign to maybe create toxin-free products for the next generation. So as we wait to see this new industry evolve, green chemicals, the plant-based, toxin-free, biodegradable, that hopefully will come into our products and create a whole new market, right?
That's right.
And go ahead.
So, we've been, 7th Generation's been in business for 26 years. We've worked up the supply chain and all the way down through retail to collaborate. And we're seeing great growth. And we're not alone. There are many companies. In fact, I know Method is here today as well.
Adam Lowry, I think.
Adam's here. And we are the fastest growing part of the industry today. So in our categories, household cleaning, personal care, and others, demand is largely flat. But you look at the growth, and most companies in our space are growing 15, 20, 25%. Where the growth is, the innovation is occurring, the supply chain is moving to support us. And so I think you're beginning to see a real transformation and real innovation and real growth due to green chemistry.
And how long before I can walk down that aisle at my grocery store and not worry that, so we're starting to see a turn that there are chemicals in my products? When is that going to happen?
I think the answer is supposed to be 2017, but I'm not sure that's necessarily true, but your options are there today. That's the good news. The options exist. And what we need to do is continue to collaborate with other players in the industry and with retailers, importantly. So Whole Foods has set up their own standard. Whole Foods, Walmart has recently announced they're going to phase out the highest chemicals of concern. And we partnered closely with Target to create a standard as well. So retailers, which are really trusted by consumers, are beginning to take action. And there's been a lot of positive pressure put on them to make the move. And they're also taking their own initiatives. So that's encouraging. And they're dedicating more space to more brands, which is creating more innovation and more growth. And we need to close that loop and continue to educate and engage consumers to understand that they've got choices for their health and well-being. And ultimately, then, we need to use scale curve economics to bring the cost down so that we have a level playing field to be able to offer it more democratically to more consumers.
I'm going to open it up to questions after this answer. So if you have a question, please jump in here. But you have a product you brought to show. The problem is still that with our cleaners and such, there's no standards as far as labeling. That's right.
So I brought a small product. This is a new product we've just launched. It's a household cleaning product. It's an all-natural multi-purpose cleaner. It is 3 ounces. Normally you would buy one that is about 36 or 26 to 36. So this is 10 times concentrated, all plant-based. Uses 86% less plastic. So interesting former conversation about recycle. Let's remember the 3 R's. The first step is reduce, reuse, recycle. So how do we reduce is an important piece. And then it's difficult to read on this one, but there are not standards in our categories about labeling. We are not required to label our ingredients, but we do. We proactively take that step. And we're hoping that more companies will follow, and ultimately some form of self-regulation, if not government regulation, will ensue. So consumers have more informed and better choices and can make those choices when they walk to the shelf and look for safer products for their families.
It should be a lot easier than it is. Do we have any questions? I can't see. There's one right here. It's Adam. We mentioned him with Method.
Oh, hi, Adam.
Hey, John. Surprise, surprise. I'm going to ask a question. Actually, I think more of a comment. One of the things that's really difficult about this regulatory problem with TSCA reform, we've been working on TSCA reform since 2002, is that we have an emerging world where we're going to be getting chemicals, brand new molecules from lots of new different sources than what we've had in the past. So traditionally, you either get it from from oil or you get it from a natural source. We're now getting from lots of other new sources. Synthetic biology would be one example of that. And so I think that one of the hardest things that we haven't yet talked about here that we need to talk about is how are we going to create a regulatory framework that ensures safety, but also spurs on innovation so that we can actually create new chemical solutions that actually deliver high performance products that are also safe. Because I think it's a very different issue looking forward than kind of the backward looking view of just how do we test these 80,000 chemicals that we've already got. The second thing I would say is producer right to know is critically important. So John self-regulates, I self-regulate in my business, and we do not have the right to know when we purchase a chemical from a chemical manufacturer what's in that chemical. Right. Method, John, you probably are the same way, but we won't buy anything where they won't tell us. but that's not the case with most companies. So
right, that's been a challenge, hasn't it?
Two big issues.
Two, yes, chemicals looking back, chemicals looking forward, and that is a problem with getting some of these green chemicals into products, because you have to look all the way down to it.
You do. You've got to trace your supply chain. You've got to collaborate with your suppliers. You have to demand a disclosure of information. I think it's incredibly important. We see ourselves as the gatekeeper and the steward for our consumers, and so we've got to do that work and hold ourselves to that standard. And I think the points Adam raises will be great for us to debate in the next session in more depth about how do we drive regulatory reform. It is complex, and frankly, right now, what's happening is states are moving a lot faster than the federal government. You've just had California, Maine, Washington, and next week, Vermont, our home state, will pass chemical legislative reform. That's going to make it more difficult, not easier, for companies because we now have different standards emerging. So this patch quilt is actually going to be an issue, and I think it's a positive first step as long as it prompts Washington to move sooner rather than later. We need comprehensive reform.
We had a question over here. I think this gentleman here. Here comes the microphone. Right here. To your left.
Yeah, I think my question was partly asked, but in some sense the regulations are always behind, and they always will be behind. The organic movement is a perfect example. This idea that not only chemical manufacturers need to know what's being supplied to them, but also right at the end of the chain, the consumer. Yeah. The consumer's right to have this information. If this information can be shared, then obviously we can make better decisions. We can talk about it. You know, we can do our own research. What is the gold standard with respect to this right to information that you have seen? And what are companies actually doing voluntarily to, is there a market mechanism that exists? Is a best practice? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think people are taking different approaches. There are, we were one of the first to disclose our ingredients on our labels. That's a good first step. Our industry is not required to do that. Others hopefully will continue to follow that, and maybe regulation will catch up. But disclosing ingredients and then going deeper in websites to provide a source of deeper data for consumer inquiry if they want it. And then retail is a critical component. I know Kate Heine is here from Target. She leads the sustainability effort there. And Target is taking a comprehensive approach to think about what goes in, what are the standards, how do they support, and then ultimately how do you communicate that to consumers in a very simple and transparent way. So we're seeing retailers really step forward. Whole Foods has done it for a long time. It's great to see Target and Walmart also step forth and begin to really change the amount of information available for consumers. And then we've got wonderful groups like EWG and others who are publishing constantly and trying to inform the consumer about risks and concerns that they ought to be aware of and look out for.
All right, well said. We'll end on that one. You'll be in an afternoon session to talk more about this, John Replogle with 7th Generation. Thank you, and thanks everyone.